In this video, we're going to cover Dubsado workflows. This is the final video in our course on how to use Dubsado, and I'm so excited about it. If you are just starting here, it might be a little overwhelming, so I do recommend starting from the beginning of the course, which is just the playlist that this video is on. Start at number 1, and we'll see you back here in a little while when you have some other things set up. Workflows are pretty advanced. They are included in the Premier plan, not the starter plan. I think you can get a lot of wonderful things set up and get comfy with Dubsado in the starter plan, and then upgrade to the Premier plan when you're ready to use schedulers, public proposals, and of course, workflows. Workflows are where you are automating all of these things. So it seems like you're automating everything when you create this questionnaire and you're going to send it over with every job, and that feels so great. It saves you a ton of time. It's so powerful to use all of these features that Dubsado has. But imagine if you didn't even have to send it over to the client in the first place, and that it automatically got sent maybe the day after they signed their contract, for instance. That's where the workflows come in. You're going to start automating things. You're going to start putting all of these different pieces together, and you're going to start to see so many possibilities of how a scheduler can fit in with a questionnaire, a scheduler can fit in with a public proposal, a lead capture can fit in with a contract and a sub-agreement, and all these different things that we've talked about can really start to fit together to create such great customer service and very professional, personalized looking customer service for your clients without you really even having to do anything. I will skip through some of the other features that we covered because you will need things like canned emails, questionnaires, forms, etc. put together before you can accurately make a workflow. So definitely check out some of those other videos before you dive into this one. And you can download our free process flow diagram in the description of this video, which I want to show you at the end how to use to decide your workflow and start to put together the automations that will work for your business and give you the most value. So of course, you're probably not surprised, we're going to go into this template section and we're going to click on workflows. Now, when you go to add a workflow, you'll just put a name. So we'll say how to use Dubsado workflow because that's our course that we're creating it for. You can attach a payment plan to this, and that will allow you to trigger things based on the first installment, second installment, third installment, etc. That means you will have to use that payment plan for any of the invoices where this workflow is applied. You don't have to use the same workflow for every project in your business, so we're just going to try and create a basic one here, and then you can get some ideas of how to create them for various different processes. We'll click Add Action, and an action is anything that a workflow can do. So changing the project status, for instance, from onboarding to design phase after they've signed the contract, for instance. You can add tags, send emails and forms, create to-do lists, sending an invoice, activating and deactivating the portal. And then what I love about Dubsado's workflows, they are really unparalleled as far as all the other client management systems that I've tried, is that they have some meta actions. So you can pause the workflow or hold the actions until, or even start another workflow. And so that means basically you can set the workflow to automatically pause or wait until the client does something. It's not quite what we call conditional logic, which is something that I think they're working on, which would be if they select this, do this. If they select this, do this. So we don't have that capability yet, but you can, for instance, not send this second form until they've already filled out the first form, or not activate their portal until they've done this thing, or not move them to a new project status until after they've paid the invoice or something like that. So I love those pause and hold actions until, and then you can also use one workflow to start a new workflow. You can also send an appointment scheduler. This is super powerful because if you remember in public proposals, for instance, if you're doing mini sessions, they can go through, pay for the mini session, and then if you have a workflow where it sends their appointment scheduler for that mini session, they'll be taken directly to that scheduler and they can go ahead and schedule which time they want for the mini session. So you can really get all of that done without having to actually really lift a finger. So we'll start with sending an email because it's pretty simple, and then you can either do this as a relative, which is in response to something else, or you can do it as a fixed day. So you can say February 6th. For instance, if you are doing, for instance, mini sessions, you might want to send a fixed email to everyone who has signed up on December 10th saying, reminder, your mini session is tomorrow, or something like that. Relative is what we use most often, and you can basically say however many days, weeks, hours, or years after or before something else happens. So these are all the triggers. And this would be workflow started. So that's like at the very beginning. Project start date. My projects are always the wedding date for the client. I'm a wedding invitation designer. So for instance, I could send an email 1 year after the wedding date saying, hey, it's your wedding anniversary. In case you didn't leave me a review, do that. Or here's a little gift for you, or whatever it is I want to do. So that's something that like I would have to manually put all of that on my calendar if I didn't have these workflow capabilities. And I would probably forget a lot of the time because it might fall on a Saturday or Sunday, and I might just forget to do it. So I love having something like a workflow in place where it just allows you to add some of those customer service steps that you wouldn't be able to do as a solopreneur otherwise. You can also trigger things after a certain form is completed, after the invoice or the contract is signed, and then after all previous actions complete, it's just basically like, okay, after we do all this stuff, do this. Or you can wait till an appointment is scheduled. Before, you can do a lot with the appointments. And then I love this after form is not completed. So that's where you can send a reminder, like if the form is not completed with their information in 5 days, you can automatically send a reminder saying, hey, just letting you know this form wasn't filled out. I'm going to need this information to get started on your project. So absolutely love that. Let's say after our contract is signed by the client, or after our invoice is paid in full, because that happens after the contract signature, we will send them an email, and you can require approval before completing this action in case you need to edit the email, edit the form. There's some people that you may not want to do this for, etc. I don't need that for this particular email. And then you can use a canned email response that you already have. So something like a welcome or onboarding is going to be a great option for after the invoice is paid in full. As usual, you can use all your smart fields. You can do whatever you want in this email. So, hey, Ashley, it's official. I'm so excited to be working with you. Here is what happens next. Complete the questionnaire, check out your client portal, work on your homework. So these are things you can do with them. I might want to do something a little bit more customized, so I might not want to use the canned email response, and instead I'll just say something like, welcome to the Design by Laney family. Thanks for taking care of the paperwork. So what I've typed in here is, next up, I'll send you a questionnaire to gather all the details. Here's a few resources that might come in handy. And then here's where I can just link a few of like my blog posts and other things. You can use this insert link here to put the link to a few things that they are interested in. What these are going to do is preempt any questions that they might have for me as they're filling out the questionnaire. So this is just a wonderful thing. And this is something that I can send to everyone without any fear of it sounding weird, because I'm always working with people who need this information. So this is not something where I need to require the approval before completing this action. I can just have this ready to go. So first, when this workflow is applied, we're going to send this email immediately after the invoice is paid in full. So now I want to add an additional action just to show you something else. I'm going to do sending of the form, and we'll say this is 2 days after all previous actions complete. So in 2 days, we'll send them the form. Here you can decide if you want to send the email to them and apply it to their portal, or just apply it to the project where you can see it, but it hasn't been sent to the client yet. This is something that I typically like to do because my questionnaire will vary based on which pieces they need for their suite, and I sometimes have to edit it. However, we're going to do the email part too, just so you can see all of that. So now we'll select our form template. So we'll say sample intake questionnaire. And again, you can use a canned email if you like, but in general, it just has to have this form or form link in it. And it reminds you of this here. Make sure this template includes the form link variable, form link. Otherwise, they won't be able to access the form. We'll apply that here. So basically, when the client pays the invoice in full, they're going to get this welcome onboarding email. 2 days later, they will get this sample intake questionnaire to fill out. And then we could even add something, for instance, send another like reminder email after if the form is not filled out within 5 days. And the form to watch is, they'll have a list of every form you've added into this workflow before. So this is going to be the only one we have right now, but if we had more, we could. And then this is where we could say, reminder, fill out the form, guys, etc. As you're making changes to your workflow, it won't apply to any of the projects that you already put this workflow on. If you do want it to do that, you can click Update Project Workflows, and then it will update any of the projects where this workflow has already been applied to add those additional steps or make whatever changes it was that you made. Otherwise, the changes will go into effect on any jobs where you apply the workflow in the future. So I'll just show you this one, which is a longer workflow, to give you an example of what this can look like. So immediately after all previous actions complete, they're going to send this sample selection proposal. And then after the client goes through the proposal, contract, invoice paid, they're going to send the sample intake questionnaire, same thing we did. And then immediately after that is completed, they're going to activate the portal and send an email saying, this is a kickoff, here's how you use the client portal, etc. And then they'll create a to-do. So these are all immediately after all actions, previous actions complete. So right after the client is doing this stuff, they're going to send them that email and create a to-do for the business owner to complete the work for Sharon or whoever it is. This step has an approve button. The business owner will need to go in and approve whenever they are ready to send the email called wrapping up. And then after previous actions are completed, 7 days later, they're going to send the post-project follow-up, and then they will archive that project immediately. And then this one is, in my opinion, a little bit out of order, but it doesn't actually matter where in the workflow this is. So if the sample intake questionnaire is not completed in 3 days, it's going to remind them to fill that out. So this one doesn't necessarily have to be in a particular order. But I would personally put it up here. Which is an example of a sample workflow here. Here's an example of a couple in my live account. So for invitations, there's 2 forms that I have it to send immediately once the workflow is applied. And those are actually sent just to the project because I need to edit them before sending them to the client. So they just add them into the project so they're there for me. And then after the first invoice installment is paid, then they're going to send the design questionnaire. And then we'll hold until 1 day after that is completed. And then they'll send a thank you. So that just says thanks for filling out the invitation design questionnaire. You know, your proofs will be ready in 5 to 7 business days. And then we just paused. This was because I was eventually going to add more things to this workflow and never did. This is for some day of stationery like menus, escort cards, etc. The dates on these are really tough because clients are always turning in things late. They're doing so much leading up to their wedding that this is like all the nitty gritty stuff that's a little difficult. So I like to send lots of reminders. So 6 weeks before the project start date, I'm going to send an email saying everything is due in 1 week, meaning 5 weeks before the wedding. And then 36 days, which is 5 weeks plus 1 day, they'll get due tomorrow. And that's why I love having like hours, weeks, days, and months, because you can really customize exactly when something should happen. Then we have the guest list due. So 4 weeks before the wedding, it says it's due in 1 week. And then 3 weeks before the wedding, it says it's due today. They're just going to the wedding planner. So it just says, hey, Molly, here's a reminder that the following items are due in 1 week for Sharon. Paper, colors, quantity, text for printed items, additions, and changes to the proposal. So that she knows what all of that means. And then every time we work together, she's going to get those same emails. And this is a very long one that I have. I have a kind of boot camp that I used to run, and I set this up with questionnaires every single day for a month. So basically you have activating the portal where they can access all of their questionnaires and homework. Then they're going to say, are you ready to work out? Which is 7 days before we start. And then the start date is the day, like February 1st, the first Monday of their little training program. So we had a form that would send 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 every single week. And then I would send an email just kind of reminding them they did a good job and stuff. Week 2, same email after that. Week 3, same kind of like keep going email after that. And then week 4. And then 53 days after, so about a month after they finish up the whole program, we were sending them just another thing saying, I'm just checking in. Here's some reminders of the things that we learned and talked about. And I'm so excited to see your progress. So this was a long workflow to set up, but it worked really well and can give you an example of how many different actions you can have on here. Now we're back in our demo account. And once you've made the workflow, how do you apply it to the job? There are a couple of different ways. So in your forms, when you go into your form settings, you can set a default workflow to apply. So if this lead capture is just for wedding invitations, I could select just my wedding invitations workflow to apply. And then anyone who comes in on this contact form, lead capture form, will automatically have that workflow applied to their account. So you can have a different one for each of your different lead captures that are located in different places. You can also do the same thing on a public proposal, which I showed you in that section. You can just select your default workflow there. Now, if a lead or job makes it in without having that default workflow attached, you can always do it manually. We'll go into our workflow tabs within the individual job, and we can apply any of our workflows. I'm going to do that sample lead follow-up because it's kind of long and we'll show you a lot. And when I click apply, you're going to get a lot of information. So you can have multiple workflows on the same job. However, some of the workflow elements might restrict or coincide, so you're going to have to just test that and play with it a little bit. That's why it's one of those more advanced features, but it's going to give you the idea of when all of these things are happening, and it's also going to give you any errors and things, like we don't have an email address here. Now, once I've applied this to a job, any work I do to this workflow, as with all forms and things, will only apply to this job. So you're not going to edit the entire workflow if you like move this, delete it, etc., do anything that customizes it for this particular project. If you want to make a change to the workflow, you can go back into your workflow template and click that update project workflows, and it will update all of them wherever that workflow is applied. Now you see a few things here that you can do. You can edit this step for just this particular project. You can remove it again just for this one. You can also mark it complete. So sometimes we will have already done a few things by the time we add the workflow to the project, so we can mark it complete, or we can force it now. So instead of waiting 2 days to send something, you can force this now. So we'll say this is supposed to send at 4:34, which is just 1 minute ago, but it couldn't send because we didn't have an email address on this job. That's okay, but I could add in the email address and then I could force now, or do the retry. If you have anything that needs approval, nothing's going to happen until you go in and you click this approve button, which you can go ahead and do if, say, you have a step that you're not going to apply to every single job. So you just want it to be there to be either approved or deleted. I can go ahead and approve it because I know I'm going to want that step to happen on this job. And then when you click view workflow, you can see where we're at in the workflow. So anything that failed to run, anything that's completed, and anything that's in progress. And also if you go into a specific workflow, such as our sample lead follow-up, when you go into edit this, you can click view workflow, and it's going to show you all the different projects that workflow is on. Currently it's only on one, and how it is going. So you could actually go in and say, okay, which of my projects are in the design stage? Which of my projects have not, sent this email yet, etc. I'd recommend playing with this before making it completely active for everyone, just to make sure it's working the way that you want it to, and that nothing is overlapping or causing errors or going in a different order than you expect it to. A weird thing that can happen is, for instance, that day of workflow had some actions that were 6 weeks before the project date. So if I don't get the workflow applied in time, we're going to get another error like this, and we might need to force now. However, that email says everything's due in a week, but now we're past the 6 week time point. So I might need to edit that email in that case and say, hey, we're really, really pushing time here. So just keep that in mind, that automating things can be absolutely wonderful in your business, but you do need to make sure that anything that you want to customize further or change around or make more specific to that client, you're going to have to make sure you edit those things individually, which is kind of the power of all of this. You have the ability to edit it by job while having all of these steps in here kind of pre-created for you so that you're not starting from scratch every time. Now, this was our last video in the course on how to use Dubsado, so I just want to talk to you a little bit about how to wrap up, where to get started on your Dubsado journey. If you've watched to this point, you might be thinking, this was 100 million different tasks that you just gave me, Laney. So I want to recommend how you can get started in the way that's going to be most beneficial to your business. What the team at Dubsado always likes to say is start somewhere and it will all come back. And the one thing I can say is don't start with workflows, because you need everything built out before you can really dive into those. So I'm going to link in the description this DIY process flow diagram. You can also make this yourself if you want, but this can help guide you. So this will start with how clients reach out to you. That's an example of like where those different lead captures can go, which different lead captures you need to create, what different types of projects you need to work on. You can do a different process flow diagram for each different type of project you want to work on. For instance, wedding stationery, day of stationery, calligraphy, licensing work, etc. It can all have a different process flow diagram and can have different forms and things in Dubsado. From there, we're talking about all the different stages that happen up until your last contact, which might be a follow-up or feedback. It could be, a year after your wedding. Hey, congrats. It was just really great working to you. If you ever have anybody else who's engaged, feel free to refer them and also do a gift, something like that. So all these steps, and I dare you to dream big. What are some steps you would love to add if you didn't have limited time and resources on your hands? What are some steps that you would love to add now that you've seen all the capabilities that Dubsado has or heard some of my recommendations? Once you've started filling this out, if you find some areas where you don't really have a clear process, that's something where you can be introspective. Ask yourself, how can these features we've seen in Dubsado help me get a clear process? What would I ideally send next? If you have some steps that clients are really dropping off, of course, this usually comes with the payment stage, etc. Ask yourself those questions how can we do better on this step? How can I provide more information? How can I provide more value, look more professional, just look more exciting to them? Maybe using some of those templates from the template library will just kind of give some oomph to your forms that help your clients get to know you a little better and feel more excited about working with you. There's a lot of these steps that you can actually kind of cross out. So proposals, specifics, that can be just a questionnaire. The contracting and payment, that's all one step. That used to be 3 different steps, and now with Dubsado, proposal, contract, invoice, all one step that's very easy. So you could even cross off some of these steps once you get them created in Dubsado, and that's going to be a really great place to start. And then lastly, just kind of put a little heart near some of the steps that your clients really, really love and seem to respond really well to, because those are the things you're going to want to keep up, beef up, focus on, and that's the main value of what you're providing and why your clients just really dig you. Once you've got this filled out, the first things that I would do are get your branding set up, and then as far as building things out, I would start with canned email templates, contracts, and forms, because those are the 3 easiest pieces to build out. And then once you've got those 3 things, you can start using workflows, you can start combining them together, you can use a public proposal. So you'll have all this ability with just those 3 basic things, and you can build off of that. So keep it really simple at first. The way that I started using Dubsado was someone asked me for a proposal. It was my first client that wasn't a family member or friend. And I was like, I need to look professional for this. I can't just send them something I made in Excel. So I actually went on and created my proposal first. And then they said, okay, we're ready to sign the contract. And so then I went and created the contract. So I just did it as needed, which is one of those great things about Dubsado and their free trial, that you can just use 3 full clients, start getting things set up slowly as needed, and then you'll start putting them together. And by the time your 3 clients are done, you'll have such a nice workflow built out, whether you've actually used the workflow functionality or you've just started using some of those things that you put together in Dubsado. I hope this course was helpful to you. You can always refer back to it and follow along with me as you create all these different elements, and definitely come back for those last 3 kind of premier features when you're ready to take things to the next level. If you haven't made the investment with Dubsado yet, I love it. You did all the homework before making your decision. You read all the way to the bottom of the page. I'm going to put the link in the description that will get you 30% off your first month or year with them. You can also use code Design by Laney, and I would so appreciate it, because that's how I get paid for providing this course for you. If you have any follow-up questions, I would love you to check out all of our other Dubsado videos while you're here. And if you're a stationery designer, definitely stay and check out some of our other playlists, because they are all designed just for you. Thanks, everyone.